Hi everybody, it's Luke from Foot Tech. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to talk about the best way to learn the fundamentals. We get asked a lot of questions by parents. Do you teach them the basics? Do you teach them passing? Do you teach them dribbling? And we say yes, but they expect it to be taught in a very different way to how we teach it. The traditional method, the way to learn the fundamentals was, let's get kids dribbling around cones. Let's get kids passing in twos. There was no opposition, no defenders, but the long-held belief was that that's going to make them better at passing, better at dribbling. You might stick a goal up and say you've got to dribble around the cones and hit it into a goal without a goalkeeper. That's going to help them with their shooting. And this has been the way for a long time and still is in many places. But we're going to talk today about the best way to do it, the best way to learn the fundamentals based on research, based on our experience as well, because we were coaches that used to do this other stuff, this unopposed ball mastery, if you call it, where we did have kids with a ball at their feet doing lots of tricks, flicks, dribbles around cones, shooting with no goalkeepers. We did all this, and now we do a different model, a games-based model. And so we know which one works best from experience, but also from knowledge, from reading papers, from researching and seeing exactly what the results are. So this is going to be quite a good one for parents to listen to, particularly, well, regardless actually, if you've got a child at any level and you're maybe thinking, how can they improve? It might just open your eyes to some new ideas and might make you look objectively at the training sessions that your child's involved with. Equally for coaches, grassroots coaches listening to this, you might only have an hour, possibly two, a week with your players. So you need to maximise that time and wasting that time on unopposed fundamental drills, going around cones, passing to a coach, the coach passes it off and they have a shot at goal. All these things need to end because you're not maximising that time with your players enough. You're not helping them get better at the game of football. Let's explain. So people think that we need to do the fundamentals. We need to do these things in isolation. For 2/3 of a training session or 3/4 of a training session, we need to do loads and loads of dribbling around cones. We need to do loads of passing in twos and using different parts of their feet and all this sort of stuff. And then at the end, let's get them into a game for 10 or 15 minutes. This has been happening for years and years and years. But there isn't any evidence to show that this works. This actually does improve the fundamentals. And this is the issue, really. The whole thing about repetition and then putting them into games. It's understandable. Anyone would be forgiven for thinking that that would work. But we're going to talk today about a study in Germany that actually just completely shows you that it doesn't. It's not the way to do it. This is one of many studies that we've certainly read, and it was a big reason why we ended up switching from our traditional curriculum of let's hammer ball mastery, let's hammer dribbling, let's hammer shooting and passing without any sort of opposition, and then let's go into a game at the end, or let's do a bit of 1v1 then go into games at the end. And we just realised that actually we found a new way. That's not to say that anybody listening to this now, any coach listening to this, it's not you've not done this on purpose. You've not done this, it doesn't make you a bad coach. It just means that maybe you need to explore new ways of helping your players. And that's what we thought. We could easily have stayed with what we were doing because it looked great to parents. We had kids in lines. We had, not kids in massive line, but kids in lines with a ball each doing skills. It all looked neat and tidy. It was great. And to the naked eye, the kids looked like they were getting better at football. But in reality, they were getting better at kicking a football. They were getting better at kicking a ball to a target. They were getting better at dribbling around cones. Put them into a game and it all sort of fell to pieces a little bit because the decision making was so poor, because all of a sudden they had defenders around them. So they had to make faster decisions, which they didn't have before. So we switched it and we went to more of a games-based model. Let's talk about one of the studies, a really interesting study in Germany, which was called Train as You Play, Improving the Effectiveness of Training in Youth Soccer Players. So what they did, they took 3 teams, children of about 10 years old, 3 teams. One of them was a control group and the other 2 trained for, I think it was 7 sessions, 5 weeks, 7 sessions in 2 different ways. One of them trained in what we call the traditional model. So going around cones, passing in twos, all these things that's happens a lot. The other group went and did more of a games-based model. Now, the interesting thing with this study was that they actually tried to weight it towards the traditional model. So they actually tried to set it up so those kids would actually have the success at the end, because the tests at the end of this 5-week period were going to be around how fast can you dribble around cones, how accurate can you pass to targets and so forth, all the traditional stuff. So realistically, the kids doing that for 5 weeks should have been better than the kids that weren't doing that, the kids that were doing more of the games-based stuff. So for 5 weeks, they did 7 sessions, round about half an hour or so. And as I say, one of them was the play group, the games-based group, and one of them was the practice group, which was the normal, the fundamental model, the dribbling around cones, passing in twos, and so forth. So with the practice model, with the dribbling around cones and so on, the coaches in that group were giving lots of instructions on technique. Do it like this, do it like that, and loads of instruction, loads of repetition of doing those drills. The play group were games. There was no dribbling, no cone dribbling. There was games that were constrained, different rules. So it might have been that they had points for keeping possession. They changed the pitch size. There was no talk about technique. It was all about letting them play and explore, but just setting up what we call constraints. So maybe making the pitch smaller to focus more on, can we do some quick passing? Maybe making the pitch longer so that we're going to focus on dribbling a bit more because they had more space. But there was no talk of do it like this, do it like that technique, any dribbling around cones and all that sort of stuff. So you would expect, given that they weighted this towards the practice group, you would expect that the practice group would nail these tests and would absolutely smash the play group to pieces, because the practice group had been doing these things week in, week out for 5 weeks. But what was interesting was that the actual result was they both performed the same. So they equally got this. They got the same results. The play group scored equally as high as the practice group. So even though that practice group had been dribbling around these cones and doing these passing drills and getting told all about technique and pass with this side of the foot and blah, 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 the play group, the group that had just been put into get a games-based session, actually performed the same. Which, when you think about it, it makes no sense. If the fundamental model works, if the old school model works, it makes no sense. The other kids, the practice group, should have absolutely smashed it to pieces, but they didn't. But you might be thinking, well, okay, well, what difference then? If why not just carry on with the cones, and why not carry on with the unopposed stuff? But the question then becomes, guess who's going to perform better in the actual game of football? Would it be the kids that have done the 5 weeks of dribbling around cones, or is it going to be the kids that have done 5 weeks of games-based work, games-based activities, where there's defenders, there's opposition, they're having to make quick decisions, they're doing activities that are closer to the game of football. The other kids are doing stuff without defenders. So guess who's going to perform better in a match situation? I hope you're all saying the play group, because yeah, you'd be right. And there are hundreds of studies to back that argument up. This study was trying to weight it more towards the practice group to almost appease the people that are saying, no, we need to be doing the cone stuff and the isolated drills. They almost weighted, or they did weight it towards that particular model just to see. Now, what else was really interesting about this result was the kids who had done the cone dribbling, the practice group, and the passing in twos and so on, they had so many more touches, so many more touches of the ball in a session compared to the play group. Okay, they probably had the ball at the feet a lot of the time and so forth. So, again, the practice group should have nailed this. But what was really interesting was they'd had so many more touches than the kids in the play group, yet the play group still scored equally as high as the practice group, but they did it with far fewer touches of the ball, which to me was so interesting. And what the researchers found was that it's probably down to variability, because they've not just been told, right, just pass it, now do your side foot, now do your outside of your foot. They've had to react to what's going on around them. And there's a lot of research into that as well, whereby the variability of what they're doing, the fact that they're having to use different parts of the foot, maybe even using their other foot based on what's going around them, actually helps them learn the fundamentals better than just doing unopposed skills work, unopposed dribbling, unopposed passing, and so forth. So that to me was a big standout. They were as good, in inverted commas, as about the fundamentals, as good at the fundamentals as the kids that had been dribbling around these cones, but they'd done it in far fewer touches of the ball. But again, it goes back to that point for a parent listening to this, maybe thinking, you know, perhaps you're a Foot Tech member, you've come to some of our sessions as a new member, and you've seen that we're doing lots of these games-based things. It's like, oh, well, you're not going to show them how to pass, you're not going to tell them. It's like, no, we don't need to, because the research backs it up. They explore these different ways, and that actually accelerates their learning and development faster than if we were to just give them a ball and loads of cones and say keep dribbling up and down there. Plus, that's really boring as well. The games-based stuff is a lot more fun because it's closer to the game of football. So the problems that we see with coaching the traditional method, and we still see this, we still see plenty of coaches doing it, and look, it's hard. Grassroots coaches, they've got jobs. They're giving up their time. They're doing this for probably because they've got a child involved, and they wouldn't have a team otherwise. So they don't have time to be researching and looking through papers and all that sort, all the geeky stuff that we do. So they do what they were taught, and maybe have a quick look on YouTube at what the latest drill is, and so on. And look, we get that. But the problem that we see with the fundamental activities is it relies on the coach actually knowing what the fundamentals are and the correct techniques for dribbling and passing and shooting. And everybody, oh yeah, we've got to use your laces for a shot, you've got to use the side foot for a pass. That's not true. It's a traditional view, but it depends on what's going on around you. A side foot pass might not be the best option. You might have to use the outside of the foot. You might have to curl the ball. The keeper stood on the left side of the goal, so I need to use my, sort of my toes maybe to get that shot across where I want it to go. If the coach doesn't know the fundamentals and they're teaching them the fundamentals, stopping them every 2 minutes to say, no, do it like this, do it like that, then your kid's not going to learn. The kid's going to learn the wrong techniques. So that's problem one. The other thing is coaches, and again, this is maybe us a few years ago, coaches will say, oh, well, we'll do both. We'll do half an hour of unopposed stuff, and then we'll get them into the games-based stuff, and then it's best of both worlds. The question there is, well, what would happen if you just did an hour of the games-based stuff? You're going to maximise that time. You're maximising your time with your players and making them better at football compared to doing both. It's the kids that are doing, if you want your kids to do these fundamentals, these unopposed things, then get them to do it at home. Give them a list of things to do, a ball against the wall, or set up their own cones. No one's saying don't do it. No one's saying don't do it, because there's plenty of examples of players that do stuff at home without a defender, and that's fine because it builds confidence, it builds sort of a relationship with the football. No one's saying don't do it. What we're saying is, if you've got a training session with defenders, use the defenders, because that's gonna make your players better at the game of football, because as it's shown here, not only are they going to develop those fundamentals, but they're going to develop them in a games-based environment, in a match-like environment. So we're keeping training close to the game, which any top coach will say, that's what you need to do. Training needs to be close to the game. So saying you'll do both is, okay, I get it, but don't maximise your time, and then send the players home with some homework, print off a little few bits for them to do, send something to the parents on the WhatsApp group to say, have a look at this, and then that's up to them. If they want to do that, great, but you've got to maximise your time with your players, and you are doing right by them by focusing on the games-based stuff, because as you see here, it helps them more. The key thing, I guess following on from that, is the fact that the just doing the unopposed stuff doesn't develop decision making. And anybody that's been at FootTech for a while or listens to any of our stuff knows that we're massive on decision making, because it's becoming more and more and more important. The game is getting faster, the game's getting better, the standard of football now is so much better, certainly in this country. And as a result of that, it's getting quicker, and the players that can make those faster decisions are the ones that will excel. If you're putting them into things where they don't need to make decisions, it's all just based on them and the ball, putting them into a game after that and expecting them to perform at a high level is madness. So the quicker they're exposed to these things where there is a defender, at least one defender, the better. It's going to help them. And you might have the tough few weeks with a beginner player or whatever, but I'm going to come on to that in a second on some of the stuff that might help. But you're doing right by them by helping them develop their decision making for the game of football. That is the end result. Getting them good at dribbling around cones looks nice to the onlookers, but then putting them into a game situation and expecting them to perform at that same level is madness. It just won't work. So what to do instead? The big thing for coaches is to design drills that work on the fundamentals, but in an opposed environment, because there'll be plenty of people here, parents and coaches, listening to this saying, well, my child's 3, my child's 4, surely they need to be doing these things. I get it, completely get it. But thankfully, we coach children from age 2. So we've had to develop some activities that develop the fundamentals, but are relevant for a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, children in preschool, children in reception. So it's hard. It is really hard, but also the simplicity behind it makes it so much easier for you to get on board with it as a coach. So for example, with our little players, with our preschoolers, we might have them all with the ball at their feet in a line across the whole pitch, and then we might have one defender and loads of goals behind that defender. And the object is that the players need to dribble their football, get past that defender, score a goal, get the ball, and then go score a goal on the opposite end. And it just keeps going like that. So we've weighted it massively in the favour of the players with the football, because they are so young and they are beginners, but they're getting lots of touches, they're dribbling with the ball, they're getting lots of touch of the ball, but they're dribbling with danger. They're dribbling with a defender to watch out for. There's only one, so the success rates are going to be massive, but still, they've had to get their head up and see where that defender is and then decide where they're going to move. Now, after a few weeks, we might stick in a second defender. We might add in goalkeepers, which is something that we do pretty quickly. We might have 3 goals at one end and 1 goalkeeper, 3 mini goals, and the goalkeeper's got to move across. So that's great for the goalkeeper because they're making decisions, but it's great for the players because they're having to see, okay, the defender's there, I'm going to go this way, and then the goalkeeper is currently guarding the goal on the left, so I'm going to go to the goal on the right. So you see what's happening there. They're getting lots of touch of the ball, they're learning to dribble, but they're also having to make decisions in the moment, okay? Very, very, very simple. And then we'll just move that on. We'll add more defenders. Then it'll start being that we might play more 1v1s and so on. It is very simple. It is very simple when you don't try to overcomplicate it. Don't go crazy in your head trying to think of these weird and wonderful drills. Just go back to the essence of the game and you'll be fine. Small-sided games, certainly, if there's coaches listening to this, maybe with players under 9s, 10s, 8s, 12s, whatever, that been playing for a couple of years, go back to the games. Go back to the games. Have your training session for an hour. If you're struggling for ideas in particular, go back to the heart of it all and play small-sided games. Play 4v4s. Condition them. Make the pitch bigger. Make the pitch smaller. 1 touch, 2 touch. Because they're going to be doing these things they're going to be developing these fundamentals, but again, it's within the game context. It's developing that decision making. But okay, some of my players need some help with their passing skills. Well, okay, brilliant. Let's make the pitch a bit smaller, maybe, so they have less time on the ball, or let's make it a bit bigger so they've got more time on the ball, and they can pick those passes a bit better. Or maybe we play a 4v2. So the players with 4 have more passing opportunities, but they've still got 2 defenders there to think about. But the success rate will be higher because there's 4 of them instead of 2. So you can do all these things. With some of my beginner players that I have, we'll start with a 4v1. and it's hard for the defender, but we make it fun. We encourage and we commentate and we get them all up for it, and it becomes a good activity to do. But what's happening there is the 4 players are getting lots of touches of the ball and they're having to pass, but being mindful of the 1 defender. Then now it's 4v2. Okay, after a few weeks, getting good at this now, becoming a bit too easy. Let's have that third defender in. Let's add the 4th. We might add the goalkeeper first. Whatever. But we build it up like that, so they're developing these fundamentals, but again within the game context, within making these decisions. It's what we've found basically from doing it for so long with beginner players, intermediates, right the way up to players that have gone on to the academies and all that sort of stuff. It's helped them. It's helped them massively compared to those isolated activities which can be done at home. They can be done in one-to-one training and all that sort of stuff. If you've got defenders in your sessions, you need to use them. And parents, if you're watching this and you're looking at some sessions that your child's going to where this is maybe piqued your interest a little bit and you've started to acknowledge, well, actually, yeah, I've seen a bit of this and it's not that great, then I'm not saying you need to go talk to the coach and you need to make a big fuss because that coach is giving up their time to be there. But maybe it's time to look at some extra training where they do get this sort of stuff and combine the two. So hopefully that has helped. But the big takeaway is we need to train kids as they play. Keep it as close to the game as possible. And this is right the way down. We do this with 3-year-olds and it works. It really does. But it's just about keeping it simple, keeping it fun. As I say, you just simplify the game. It can be done at any age. Reduce the players for the beginners. Add players to help the passing. Challenge players that are maybe the top dogs in the team. Maybe they go against more players. These sorts of things. It's very, very simple when you think about it, when you don't try to overcomplicate it. You don't go on online looking for the next Pep Guardiola drill and all that sort of stuff. It's not relevant for kids. We need to keep it as close to the game as possible and make it as fun as possible. So hopefully that's helped. If you do need any advice on this, if you're a coach listening to this that wants some ideas, we've got plenty of those for you. Please do get in touch. If you're a parent and want to talk to us about this for your child, maybe you're a FootTech member, want some more information, maybe you're a parent that's at other sessions and you want to pick our brains on things, please do so. That's what we're here for. But hopefully that's been of interest and we look forward to speaking to you next time.